The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Jesse Heller. I'm the Marketing Director at FayeBSG Systems Group. You're joining our webinar today with Don Farber, co-founder of Sage Alerts and Workflow. And Don's going to be presenting, taking us through today's presentation on becoming a data-driven organization with Sage Alerts and Workflow. So we're really excited to have Don here presenting and excited to take you through today's presentation. If you do have any questions at all throughout the presentation, I'll monitor those in the chat box. So just pop them in there, and I'll shoot them over to Don as we go through. So with that, I'm just going to spend about a quick 30 seconds talking a little bit about FayeBSG Systems Group. In case you're not aware who we are, we've been in the Sage space for a long time. We've got over 25 years of Sage experience. Primarily, we work with Sage100. We've got just about 500 clients, and we're also a big partner with Sugar CRM, or Sugar CRM Elite partner, and a Sage Goals partner. We're based here in Southern California. We focus on specifically ERP and CRM, accounting and marketing automation, and custom solutions. So we've done a lot of implementations and customizations for Sage100 as well as Sugar CRM. On the next slide, you can see we've built a suite of Sage100 add-on products. We're most known for our Sugar CRM Sage100 integration, which brings a cloud CRM solution to Sage100, which is one of our most popular products, actually. Additionally, we've got a handful of other products here that just are Sage100 enhancements and add-ons that's pretty cool. So with that, Don, I'm going to pass the ball over to you. And again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Jesse. Appreciate it. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for spending some time with me today to talk about this concept of becoming more data-driven. Again, my name is Don Farber. I'm one of the founders of the Sage Alerts and Workflow technology that we'll be talking about a little bit later on in today's presentation. But I'd like to start off by asking the question, why should an organization consider becoming data-driven or perhaps more data-driven? Well, let me share with you some results that we've seen from organizations that have adopted this data-driven mentality. First of all, we've seen organizations reduce their clients' time to pay over on the AR side of the business by up to 30%. We've seen organizations able to identify and avoid having to pay higher prices for their items that they sell from their suppliers. We've seen a reduction in our clients of late shipments by close to 20%. We've seen a dollar increase in monthly AR collections by an average of $11,000, and perhaps saving the best for last, we're seeing our clients realize a savings of at or around 100 staff hours every month, freeing up staff for more important activities. And so with those 5 real-life results, hopefully I've got your interest and you'd like to learn a little bit more about how you could see some of those results in your organization as well. So let's start now and talk about this concept of becoming data-driven, which itself is very closely tied to the larger category of business intelligence. Now, a data-driven organization is one that's using the details of your everyday business activities to increase both your profitability and your productivity. Now, being data-driven, what that means is that you've got a greater visibility into your business data, your daily transactions and activities in real time. And that allows you to avoid making bad decisions based upon incomplete data or assumptions rather than on hard, up-to-date facts. So let's consider what type of organizations typically adopt a data-driven initiative, or for that matter, what folks within an organization typically adopt these. Typically, the concept of becoming more data-driven is something that's adopted and implemented by managers and executives. Why? Because it's those higher levels of staff that are typically tasked with analyzing business activities, key performance indicators, anomalies, exception management, etc. And typically, it's these folks, again, managers and executives, who are given the appropriate analytical tools that colloquially we refer to as slice and dice technologies. And these folks also typically are allocated the time to do this research. Now, everyone else within an organization, everyone that sits below those C-level folks, well, we're all the worker bees, and we're just taking care of business on a day-in, day-out basis. But there's something nagging about that concept, and that's the following. You know, if you think about your organization's business and how you succeed in business, isn't it true that the big picture of your success is really based upon the collective little pictures of success, those activities that are assembled and acted on by your non-managerial staff? I think it's a safe assumption to say, yes, that is true. And therefore, the value of business intelligence goes far beyond C-level staff within an organization. So if we take that as true, here's a concept. How about we simply take our traditional strategic business intelligence slice and dice technology and give it to every one of your workers, allowing your staff to analyze their business activities every which way from Thursday? Well, if you're like me, and like a lot of organizations, your response to that proposal is heck no. So we need to think more about this. If we recognize that the importance of being data-driven can benefit all members of an organization, not just C-level staff, what we need to do is we need to match the right kind of business intelligence data to the appropriate people within our organization. And that all brings us back to the concept of business intelligence and how that intelligence is used. Managerial staff, executives, and the like, they use BI solutions to analyze business activities, to detect trends, anomalies, perform exception management, and uncover organizational inefficiencies. And at the same time, managers and executives also typically use a BI technology to postulate what-if scenarios. What if we focused more time, money, and resources over on this side of the business? Would that potentially have a positive result? Well, this kind of BI technology is not what you want to give to your operational staff. They don't have the time to be using interactive slice and dice tools. Non-managerial staff need a business intelligence technology that helps them complete their daily tasks more easily, more quickly, and more intelligently than before. And to do this, non-managerial staff need a BI solution that does two unique things. Number one, it gives these worker bees within an organization a greater visibility into and a greater ability to respond to the individual time-sensitive tasks that make up the majority of their daily work. And at the same time, the non-managerial staff members need a technology that's going to lessen their workload. How? By automating repetitive tasks. And there are a lot of repetitive tasks that take place within the ERP component of an organization today. Think about the process of things like generating and sending out invoices and statements and order confirmations and purchase orders, etc. Well, what we're talking about here is a new type of business intelligence. It's called operational business intelligence, or, since we're all in love with our acronyms, OBI. Now, operational business intelligence is focused on those two aspects that we just mentioned. First and foremost, providing more visibility into daily business activities to your worker bees. Things like, tell me what's happened that applies to me and my activities. Tell me what I need to know and what I need to do to complete my part in those activities, and deliver this information to me when I need it and how I need it, whether I'm at my desk looking at my computer or I'm on the road somewhere with access solely to perhaps my mobile device. And at the same time, operational business intelligence is designed to automate tasks. For example, when a new order is placed, OBI should automatically generate an order confirmation and automatically deliver it to the client. If stock levels are running low, an OBI technology should automatically generate a purchase order for that item and automatically deliver that PO to the corresponding vendor. And even other aspects, such as if you know that every Monday at 9 a.m. you need to distribute lists of jobs that are due to be started this week, let OBI automate that process for you. So let's consider a typical challenge faced by many organizations today: late payers. Sadly, we all have to deal with them. You sell products or services to your customers, and sometimes those customers fail to pay you on time. Now, when this happens, and it's not if this happens, it's when this happens, what do you do? Do you have one or more people whose job it is to run reports or analytics looking for delinquent clients? Do you need to notify certain people about a delinquent invoice? Do you need to notify the customer, the sales rep, your CFO? Do you need to deliver related documents? If an invoice is past due, let's automatically regenerate that invoice and email it to the customer. Do you potentially need to do additional research? If a client is delinquent in their payments, might it be useful for you to run an AR aging report for that client and deliver that report to that client's sales rep? And do you need to take additional steps? Again, if a client is past due, maybe we actually need to either put them on credit hold or change their payment terms. Now, when you look at those preceding 5 questions, if you said yes, you do one or more of these things when and if clients fail to pay you on time, then I'd ask you to ask yourself the following questions. Whose job is it within your organization to detect delinquent customers? How are they detected? And how soon are they detected? As soon as they become delinquent, or some number of days or weeks afterwards? Whose job is it to notify the appropriate people, to notify the client that they're past due, to notify their sales rep? How soon do those folks get notified? Who generates the needed documents, the invoice, or perhaps regenerating the statement for the customer? Again, how soon do these documents get generated and delivered? Whose job is it to do the additional research, to run that AR aging report? And finally, whose job is it to go back into your Sage ERP system and do such things as putting that customer on hold, changing their payment terms? How quickly do those tasks get done? Now, if you're like most organizations, the answer to those questions are as follows. Who does this? It's you and your staff. How is this done? Well, mostly manually, people remembering to take those actions. And how are these actions? How soon are these actions done? How quickly are they executed? Well, in most cases, really not soon enough, a number of days or perhaps even weeks later. So, in order for organizations to be competitive today, the processes of detection and response must be automated. And that's exactly what operational business intelligence is all about. It automatically detects important time-sensitive business conditions and activities. It automatically notifies the appropriate people. It automatically generates and delivers the required documents. It automatically triggers additional research based upon real-time data. And lastly, it automatically updates your business applications, here, your Sage ERP and related systems, to make sure that both your people and your systems are in sync with each other. Okay. So, as Jesse mentioned at the start of our talk today, we're going to discuss now a technology that supports this automation of detection and response, Sage Alerts and Workflow. Now, Sage Alerts and Workflow starts out by automatically detecting these types of conditions in your Sage ERP system. Now, for example, if you're using Sage100 out of the box, Alerts and Workflow ships with roughly 85 pre-configured business conditions: low stock, overdue invoices, clients who have stopped buying from you, and other such conditions. And note, although we're talking about today specific uses related to your Sage ERP system, you know, most businesses don't run everything just on Sage ERP. You might have a CRM or sales app, a customer service app, human resources app. It's worth noting that Alerts and Workflow can monitor, can detect and respond to those systems as well. Secondly, automating the notifications of the appropriate people. Now, whenever I say notifications or alerts, people always assume email. And yeah, email is a valid alert delivery method, but you know something? As soon as an email is sent, it becomes no longer current. And in order to open and see an email, you have to wade in through email, wade through your spam, find the corresponding message. Personally, I love alerts that are published dynamically and in real time to web-based dashboards, and that's the example that you're looking at here. But Alerts and Workflow includes all of those alert delivery methods. Using the example of customers whose invoices are past due for payment, let's have those required forms and documents automatically generated and delivered by Alerts and Workflow. So whether it is generating an invoice to a past due customer, or perhaps just automatically sending out order confirmations for every new sale that's placed, Alerts and Workflow can do that. And the additional analytics, whether it's through Crystal reports, Sage Intelligence reports, Sage Enterprise Intelligence, Alerts and Workflow has the ability to trigger, generate, and deliver those additional analytics, whether it's sending information to the account manager who's responsible for the client, or potentially even sending an analytical report down to the client themselves to give them more details on their financial position. And you know something? When it comes to delivering information, sometimes a picture really is worth 1,000 words. So with Alerts and Workflow, it actually includes graphic alerts. Because you know something? If I'm going to be told about a customer who has changed their buying habits and they're all of a sudden buying a lot less than they used to from me, probably the best thing I could ask for would be a nice looking line chart or bar chart showing that customer's sales over the last 3, 6, 9, or even 12 months. And finally, the ability for Alerts and Workflow to go back into your Sage ERP system and automatically update them. Again, if a client is past due, well, let's automatically put that client on credit hold. Let's change their payment terms so that before they receive product or services, they have to pay for that purchase. And again, we're not just talking about going back into Sage ERP. We're talking about going back into your other applications as well. So if you are using a sales or CRM app, and if a client's invoice is delinquent, how about having Alerts and Workflow go into CRM and actually schedule a follow-up phone call that takes place between the client's account manager and the client themselves. So when we look at the Alerts and Workflow operational business intelligence system, it quite logically consists of 6 steps, starting with monitoring your Sage ERP system, triggering the relevant time-sensitive alerts, which can include related forms, documents, reports, and even graphical analytics, and ending up with going back into your Sage ERP system to automatically update those applications as well with the details of what has happened and what has to happen to address the situation that's occurred. So now you've got a verbal description of Sage Alerts and Workflow. At this point, I want to take a pause and actually show you what that technology looks like in real life. So let me bring up the application itself, grab myself a quick sip of water, and we will be good to go. So Sage Alerts and Workflow, a couple of items that I want to mention about the technology itself. First of all, it's a server-based application. What that means is that you typically install it on just one machine. It does not need a dedicated server. You could put it on your Sage ERP server, on your SQL Server box, your Exchange server, or even run it on a workstation, which is what I'm demoing it to you from today. Alerts and Workflow runs under any Windows-based operating system, so that makes that a mercifully brief conversation. And the way Alerts and Workflow works, well, I like to use the analogy of a smoke detector. You point Alerts and Workflow at the various modules within your Sage ERP system you want it to monitor. You pick and choose the various types of business conditions that are most important to your organization, and then you tell Alerts and Workflow what to do, what alerts to send, what analytics to generate, what updates to trigger back into your Sage ERP system. Now, I mentioned that out of the box, Alerts and Workflow ships with roughly 85 pre-configured conditions as an example for Sage100. If we just bounce down to our inventory control branch just for a moment, I just want to give you a sense for the types of business conditions that Alerts and Workflow can monitor for. Everything from items that are approaching their reorder level, items that have had their price changed, promotions that are due to start or end within a certain number of days, or even just looking at item profit margins that are greater than or less than certain percentages. So you get all of these with Alerts and Workflow out of the box. But since we were talking about accounts receivable earlier, and specifically about collecting on past due invoices, let's actually take a look at an event that does exactly that. So I've gone back into my accounts receivable component here in Sage Alerts and Workflow, and I'm going to drill down specifically into my event that's looking for invoices that are overdue for payment. Now, every event in Alerts and Workflow has up to 5 components. The first is telling me whether the event is active and how often I'm checking for this particular condition. Now, in this case, this event is running every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, that might be a little bit too frequently. I might want to run this event maybe once a week, or maybe even just a couple times a month. That frequency, that schedule of checking is up to you. And it can be quite frequent. For example, monitoring stock levels. Well, you probably want to do that more than once a week, maybe even more than once a day, maybe every hour, every 30 minutes, every 5 minutes, or even continuously. With Alerts and Workflow, you have complete control over how often you wish to monitor your varying business conditions. Now, this event, as every event has, uses a query. A query identifies the underlying business condition that you want Alerts and Workflow to check for. In this case, we're looking for invoices that are overdue for payment and have an open balance of greater than X dollars. This particular event is triggering on an unpaid balance of greater than $100. Now, everything in Alerts and Workflow is based upon security and permissions, from what folks can set up events to configure them, to modify them and delete them. So I have full authorizations with Alerts and Workflow, so I can actually go in here and modify my triggering criteria. Maybe I want to look only at those invoices that have a balance of at least $1,000. This is completely controllable by you. Now, I'm just going to exit out of this window for a moment because I want to talk in a little bit more detail about the query itself. You might, for example, say, well, Don, yeah, we do have overdue invoices, but some of our customers always pay late, and we know who they are, and we're okay with them. So is there a way that I can pick and choose only to either include or exclude certain customers, certain account managers? How easy is it for me as a non-technical person to further customize these conditions? Well, the answer to my question is as follows. You don't have to be a programmer. You're not writing any kind of SQL syntax or anything like that. In Alerts and Workflow, we provide you with a wizard-driven UI, a wizard-driven experience whereby you have complete control over the conditions that you want to look for, as well as the content of your alerts. If, for example, you've ever worked with a crystal report for your Sage ERP application, you have all the expertise that you need. Just to show you a couple aspects of the query designer. Alerts and workflow will let you pick and choose what fields of information you wish to retrieve from your underlying database. If I wish to send alerts about invoices that are overdue, chances are I'd like to grab the invoice number, the original invoice date, its due date, current balance, etc. You can get quite sophisticated in terms of the types of conditions you want alerts and workflow to look for. We talked earlier about triggering on too low profit margins as an example. If I wanted to total up all of the past due invoices for each client, I can easily do that. Or simply wanted to know about any clients who had more than 3, 4, or 5 past due invoices. I talked earlier about excluding certain customers, very easy to do from the Filters tab. This query, by default has just 2 filters which specify its triggering conditions. My first filter is looking at invoice balance, and it's saying that the balance has got to be greater than a certain amount. Everything here is available in plain English format from drop-down lists. Now, I could hard code this compare value and say $500, $1,000, or whatever I wish, but by leaving this compare value as a question mark, I actually allow myself to reuse this one query in multiple events. After all, one person might want to know about invoices that are overdue for more than $1,000. Someone else might want to know about invoices that are overdue for more than $500 or $200. And of course, we do need to make sure that the invoices being retrieved are in fact past due. So we're simply saying that the invoice due date is less than the current date. Now, before we leave this tab, I just want to draw your attention down to the bottom right. Have you ever, in your use of your Sage ERP system, thought to yourself, man, I wish I knew who had changed this value? An invoice has its due date changed. A customer has their credit limit or credit status changed. Well, Alerts and Workflow allows you to audit every single field, even custom fields, in your Sage ERP database. Alerts and Workflow will identify when a field's value has changed and when it changed from and to. Now, let's actually test this query. Let's see if we have any invoices that are past due for more than $1,000. So we'll just type in our $1,000, hit OK. And yes, indeed, we do. And we can see our due date here, all back in 2010. Those are not only past due, they're kind of egregiously past due. And we can also check that the balances are, in fact, all greater than $1,000. That just gives you an idea of the flexibility that you have to identify the very specific conditions that are most meaningful to your organization. Let's go back to the event itself. Having identified the triggering condition, our next step is to specify what kind of alerts do we want to send to people. Do we want to send people email messages, text messages to their cell phone? Do we want to dynamically publish information to a web-based dashboard? This particular event is a little bit atypical because I've enabled all of its alert delivery methods, from email to fax to instant message and web dashboard. Of course, you don't have to configure all of those alert delivery methods. You might want to use just a couple of them, and it may vary based upon your events. But let's take a look at one of these. We'll choose our instant message alert. And I want to give you a sense for just how easy it is to define and customize alert messages. So this particular instant message alert is going to show us our invoice number for a particular customer. It's going to show us the balance of that invoice and provide us with the invoice's due date. Maybe it would be nice to know what the original date of the invoice is. So let's just add a place for that. We'll find our invoice date and just collect that field, double click on it, and put it right down into the message text. It is truly that easy to create and customize alert delivery messages. But if I look at the list of deliverables for this event, in addition to all of my alert messages going out, I can also have Alerts and Workflow generate relevant forms, documents, reports, and charts. And this event actually has one report and one chart. After all, If we do have invoices that are overdue, the single most logical thing to do, let's regenerate the invoice and deliver it to the corresponding customer. This is my standard Sage ERP invoice form. I'm telling Alerts and Workflow to generate that form in PDF format. You could choose other formats like HTML, Word, Excel, etc. But I'm a big fan of PDF. And Alerts and Workflow is going to automatically take each invoice that is past due. Alerts and Workflow will take that invoice number, pass it to my invoice form. That invoice will then be created, in this case in PDF format, handed back to Alerts and Workflow, and as we'll see in just a couple of minutes, automatically delivered to the corresponding customer. But also what you see here is an example of a chart. So let's just have a quick look at the charting module within Alerts and Workflow. Like I said, sometimes what you really want to send to someone is just a nice looking picture of what's going on. So this particular chart is showing me my total of overdue invoices per sales rep or account manager. And let's see what we've got here. So we've got 4 sales reps with customers with overdue invoices, and they're all relatively under control except for Shelley, whose clients are totaling, wow, over $500,000 worth of overdue invoices. We probably need to work with Shelley to help her collect from those customers. So that gives you an idea of the type of information, the content that can be included in an outgoing alert. So our next step is who are going to be the recipients of this content and of those alerts. Now, in Alerts and Workflow, an alert recipient is referred to as a subscriber, and this event has 4. First of all, we're going to notify everyone in our finance group and myself. We're notifying the folks in finance via email and fax and instant message. Sometimes I like to joke that you can really annoy the heck out of someone with this application if you put your mind to it. Myself, I'm being notified via just 2 methods, email and IM. But you know, as nice as it is to notify me, notify our finance group, honestly, the 2 most important people to be notified are these final 2 subscribers, referred to as dynamic subscribers, because we're notifying the customer who has the overdue invoices, as well as the salesperson or account manager who's responsible for those customers. Naturally, these people are going to change based upon which invoices are past due at any given time the event runs. And by the way, just some little niceties in Alerts and Workflow. For example, for myself, I actually have 2 email addresses. Why? Because Monday through Friday, I get notified at my work email address. But if an alert needs to be delivered to me on Saturdays, on Sundays, before or after work hours, I actually have Alerts and Workflow configured to send to my personal, in my case, Gmail email address. You can even define what your organization's holidays are. After all, if no one's going to be in the office to receive an alert, it's probably wise to wait until the next business day before that alert ends up getting delivered. Which brings us to the final component of Alerts and Workflow, really the workflow component. Now, a couple of words about this module. This is where Alerts and Workflow has the ability to go back into your business applications, go into Sage ERP and put a delinquent customer on hold, go into Sage CRM or any CRM for that matter and schedule a follow-up phone call for the customer's sales rep to make to them. Now, this entire module is covered under an additional layer of security. So 2 tiers of security. Why? Because when it comes to updating your business applications, your Sage ERP and related solutions, you need to be 110% sure that only the requisite people with the appropriate knowledge be able to configure such workflow actions. These actions are a combination of some wizard-driven actions, things like simply creating an export file. Maybe you've got a collections agency that you work with, and at the end of every week or month, that collections agency needs to receive from you a comma-separated file of all overdue invoices so that they can start collections. But there are also some programmatic APIs here, including a visual basic scripting module and some other programming tool sets. So that gives you an idea of what a typical event in alerts and workflow can automatically monitor for and how it can automatically respond to those conditions. Pardon me. Before we leave the application, however, I want to give you an idea for just how sophisticated you can get with the types of business conditions that alerts and workflow can monitor for. And please pardon me while I take a second to just clear my voice. Alrighty, that's a bit better. So let's now go down to the branch called Sales Order Trends, Automated Trend Analysis, one of my favorite uses for alerts and workflow. Let's take a quick look at this third event. This event, what it does is it runs on the first day of every month. It's basically looking for customers who have changed their buying habits. So what does this event do? Well, a number of things. It starts out by looking to see what each customer purchased for the month just ended. Then alerts and workflow is going back 6 months for each customer. Why? To derive an average monthly order amount for each customer. And having derived that, alerts and workflow can then compare for each customer what they purchased last month versus their average month, and then have alerts and workflow identify any customers whose sales for the month just ended represents a drop of at least 30%. And if and when that happens, alerts and workflow is doing two things. Number one, generating a chart. Like I said, let's send a nice looking sales history chart showing a customer's sales over the last 6 or so months. At the same time, alerts and workflow is going to send an additional alert, in this case, an email alert. So let's have a look at this email. The subject of the email reads, end of month, down 30% versus the average month. And the text of the message, going to each salesperson and for any customer whose sales have dropped by at least 30% versus their average monthly sales, the alert message reads as follows. This customer of yours has placed orders for the previous month to date that represents a decrease of at least 30% over their average month. And then we're showing just 4 fields of details, but oh, how useful those fields are. For each customer, we're showing their last month's order total, their average monthly order total based upon the preceding 6 months of activity, and then the decrease. The decrease represented both as a dollar amount and as a percentage. You know, to have a sales rep come into the office on the first day of the month and have 1 or more emails like this just waiting for them to give them that heads up that they've got customers who have changed their buying habits, very, very useful. Okay, so let's jump back into our PowerPoint for a final few slides. All right. So let's review some business benefits of this operational business intelligence technology. First and foremost, it's an enterprise-wide solution. So although we've been talking about its use relative to your Sage ERP system, do note, it'll also integrate with all of the other business applications that you're using. Now, you may have seen recently in the news, there's been some writing about this new initiative called the Zero Latency Initiative. This is tied in with this concept of becoming more data-driven. A zero latency initiative is the following. As soon as information becomes visible to an organization, we want alerts and workflow, or we want a technology to be able to see it and respond to it. That is what is meant by the Zero Latency Initiative. All right. Alerts and workflow delivers the needed information to any device, cell phone, computer, dashboard, etc. It automates the information delivery process, such as sending out order confirmations, shipment confirmations, invoices, statements, purchase orders, and the like. It enables auditing to know whenever someone has changed critical fields of data within your organization. It automatically updates your business applications. And I just want to spend a moment to talk about this last checked item, because it's not something we've discussed thus far, but is a very critical potentially critical use of alerts and workflow. In addition to monitoring your Sage ERP system and your other business applications, alerts and workflow has the ability to monitor the content of incoming email. So ask yourself, does your organization have generic email accounts like info@yourcompany.com, sales@, support@, and if so, whose job is it to watch over those accounts, to automatically respond to those messages, to send those messages to the appropriate people, etc.? Too often, those generic email accounts are black holes where emails go to die. Alerts and workflow can automatically monitor, process, and respond to those incoming email messages in the same way it can monitor and respond to conditions within your Sage ERP system. What makes operational business intelligence unique? Well, certainly its capabilities do, in that it focuses on data visibility and the automation of standard tasks. But beyond that, it's inexpensive to purchase. It is less than 1/10 the price of strategic or traditional business intelligence. It is typically implemented and up and running in less than 1 day. Since it's not an end user application, since it is that business smoke detector, that system that you install, you tell it what to look for and how to respond, you walk away with it turned on and just let it do its thing. It means that it doesn't impose a burden on your IT staff to get implemented and to have to maintain on a daily or weekly basis. Proof of that is the following statistic. There are over 10,000 organizations worldwide using the Sage Alerts and Workflow technology. We do all first-level support on the product, and on an average day, we get fewer than 8 incoming new support requests. It really is a set it and forget it type of technology. And it has been the recipient of numerous awards and commendations over the years, including my personal favorite from Forbes, an organization that I think we can all admit know a thing or two about business. They gave the Alerts and Workflow technology its commendation for top productivity enhancing tool. Just to briefly go over some other typical use scenarios, reducing your outstanding receivables balance, getting customers to pay sooner rather than later. If you're not already familiar with the term, you might wish to look into something called DSO, stands for Days Sales Outstanding. It's a measurement of the health of your AR organization. And it's a fairly simple calculation. And it's proven that Alerts and Workflow not only helps an organization reduce their DSO by automating tasks, by keeping on top of receivables that are coming due and past due, but Alerts and Workflow itself can actually monitor your organization's DSO and show the improvements that are taking place in your Days Sales Outstanding. I was actually at a Sage Summit conference recently in San Diego. I'll be going to another one in Atlanta in just a few weeks. I had a customer come up to me with their cell phone held out in front of them in a very excited manner. They said, "Don, take a look at this." And they had gotten a text message that alerted them to an item on a purchase order whose price from the supplier was more than, it was either 15 or 20% above their last price. And so Alerts and Workflow had automatically sent out an alert with suggestions for alternate vendors from whom that item could be purchased at a lower price. And then simply automating tasks like order and shipment confirmations. You know something? In business life, stuff happens. Orders get delayed, shipments get misrouted. And what's understandable and acceptable is the fact that such things occur. What isn't acceptable is not communicating those oops scenarios to your clients. And so simply using Alerts and Workflow to not only send out order confirmations, shipment confirmations, but to let customers know when things have changed, when an order is coming early or coming late. As long as you have a way, excuse me, to automate those types of client communications, your client relationships will benefit. Accidents happen. Not telling people about accidents shouldn't happen. All right. One more case study to share with you, an organization called Toyo Inc. They're a multinational manufacturer of ink for printing presses. They were manually generating and sending invoices. All of their paperwork, all of their standard forms were going out, mostly manual, some in paper, some electronically, but even the electronic formats were still being compiled and sent out manually. In their first 6 months of using the alerts and workflow technology, they actually sent out over 20,000 alert messages. I know when they told us that number, I was kind of shocked, and I think my initial response was, wow, did you mean to send all of those alerts? And they assured me that yes, they did. And then they shared with me their 2 ROI statistics. Over 100 staff hours saved every month by virtue of automating tasks that used to be done manually, and they saw an increase in their monthly AR collections by roughly $11,000, which was far more than it cost them to invest in the alerts and workflow solution. In fact, exponentially more. So, when asking yourself, should you become more data-driven? Could you benefit from being a more data-driven organization? Ask yourself the following questions. In your ERP and related data, do you have a lot of dates that you need to track? Due dates, delivery dates, promise dates, expiration dates, discount expiration dates, and the like. ERP solutions are rife with dates. You need to track them. You need to know when they're upcoming, when they're here, and when they're in the past. What about thresholds? You know, credit limits are great, and knowing when a credit limit has been exceeded is all well and good, but I'd rather be notified when the credit limit is being approached, when a client has reached 80, 85, or 90% of their credit limit. Now, here's something that you might not think of when you talk about monitoring various business conditions. Monitoring for activities that should have happened but didn't. I have a customer who buys from me month after month after month. I need to know if a month goes by, or for that matter, 3 weeks goes by, and I haven't heard from that customer. I need to know about parts and inventory that have not been sold in a certain number of days. I need to know about customers who we haven't reached out to in a certain amount of time. Sometimes the most important information you need to know about and take action in regards to isn't something that has happened, but something that should have happened but hasn't. Certainly monitoring for exceptions and anomalies, very popular in today's business world. Do you have the need to perform trend analysis? If so, automate it. Do you need to know when critical business information in your Sage ERP system has changed? And last but not least, what about those manual tasks like invoicing and delivery of statements, etc.? Are those processes to some degree today being done manually? Last thing I want to share with you before we open up the lines for any questions, comments that folks have is a tool that I'd strongly encourage you to look into. If you go to the website for sagealertsandworkflow.com, and that website is simply alerts and workflow, all spelled out, alertsandworkflow.com. In the center of the homepage, you'll see a question that says, does your organization need alerts and workflow? Click here to find out. That will take you into the Alerts and Workflow Needs Assessment tool. This is a free tool. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes to go through it from start to finish. You can do it on your own, and you can go through it multiple times if you'd like to do so. This tool asks you questions about your current business processes. Everything from, do you have inventory? Do you need to monitor stock levels? Do you send invoices to your customers? Do you send purchase orders to your suppliers? How important are those processes to your organization? To what degree are those processes currently automated? Are they completely automated? Are they completely manual? Or, as is usually the truth, is that somewhere in between? They're somewhat automated. Well, you answer all of these questions, and when you come to the end of the needs assessment, you'll get this, the needs report card. And what that does is it breaks down what alerts and workflow as an operational business intelligence system can do for you and your organization, and based upon the answers that you've given to those questions, this report card will show you those aspects of alerts and workflow that you need the most. And at that point, you can contact Jesse and his colleagues at FayeBSG Systems and work with him on further identifying the need for alerts and workflow and the value that it can offer to your organization. So with that, I'm actually going to take a pause, turn things back over to Jesse, and see if we have any questions that we can